Why is this one of the most controversial movies ever made, and why did you choose it?
I guess the controversy is, as I understand it, was that the filmmakers Jacopetti and Prosperi, is that correctly pronounced?
Yes.
Were very interesting. I find them very interesting, at least, in that they started the whole Mondo Cane genre in the 60s. And they kind of took this docudrama stylized world and started evolving it after Mondo Cane 1 and 2. And after a few films, they kind of turned into this film called Farewell Uncle Tom, which in a way is probably the most offensive film ever made. Now, even though this is a different version in terms of length compared to other versions, it doesn't differ from the pure, just sleazy feel of the movie. But at the same time, Jacopetti and Prosperi were great cinematic masters. Their films are incredibly well crafted and well photographed, well thought out, and it's a completely unique genre. And they had a composer called Rich Ortolani who was their co-gangster in a way, because he would score all their movies, which is just, the score themselves are magnificent. I find these two filmmakers very interesting, and very little is known about them. They're not very well talked about or thought of because of the explosive nature of some of their work. There was very controversial things about Prosperi's life. But in a way, I think that he was misunderstood in many ways. But this film, as I understood it when it hit the grindhouse circuits in America, was like, that was the end of an era where people were just like disrupting and burning down cinemas and just going insane. So it was pulled from distribution. As you will see it, it's a lot of filmmakers have been stealing dialogue from this film in the recent years. So that's an interesting little footnote. But otherwise, it's quite a unique piece of cinema.
We should point out that Prosperi and Gualtiero, it's Jacopetti, they actually made this because they were actually sick to death of their Mondo Cane genre being what they thought was being watered down and being misrepresented. So they came up with the idea of like the blurred reality, which is what you're going to see in this. Pauline Kael gave it a great review, though. I mean, she loved it. I mean, she thought it was really good, and she couldn't understand the complete revulsion that faced this film, really. But you also used the love theme from this movie in Drive. He actually uses that on the soundtrack. So, it is something. It does mean something more to you.
Oh, yeah, no, the whole Richard Stellani music for these films, starting with Mondo Cane, is just magnificent. I enjoy it very, very much personally. And I remember in the beginning, this movie was more like an urban legend. And the first thing you found many years ago was a Japanese VHS tape of it. And I remember seeing it at my house and going, oh my hell, this is extreme. And it had this incredible, beautiful theme song. So when I was working on Drive, even when I was doing the script finish, I decided that this song was certainly going to be in the movie. So this, Oh My Love, was the first song I chose for Drive. And I even played it while we were shooting the film.
And the two directors have credited Peter Watkins' work of Culloden and the War Games for actually directly inspiring this. Again, it's that sort of like reality, because this is really like the slave trade told as if you've gone back in time to actually watch it as a documentary. So that's really what I think is.
Yeah, it's kind of a very strange spin on something. They came off a very incredible documentary called Africa Addio, which was almost a 3-hour documentary of just insanity of Africa, with documentary footage and staged footage. And it's that kind of idea of blurring reality with fiction I found very inspiring when I started making my films. When I started making these pusher gangster films back in Copenhagen, I was all about how can I capture realism to the extreme. And I think that they were in the same ball game, but they went on to do a much more cinematic approach to things later on, which in a way what I did myself when I started making films like Bronson, which became much more fetishized for me, and rather than my earlier films, which were more about capturing reality, it became more about being interested in heightened reality. But this film is an extreme combination of both themes.
I mean, there are a lot of posters to this. We actually use one of them in the book that we've just done together, The Act of Seeing, and it's one you particularly liked, wasn't it, because of the stark imagery on it?
Well, the image, the famous poster image for this is very, borderline offensive, but it's also aesthetically very interesting. And the thing about it with Prosperi and they were highly intelligent people that wanted to make a point that was very much, I think, misunderstood later in career, and they kind of faded into obscurity. And in their native country, in Italy, no one even knows them. And when Prosperi died a few years ago, no one even wrote about it. So it was kind of a strange ending for that.
And I mean, to be honest with you, I think what you're going to see here is actually the best version of the film. I mean, I'm not talking about the quality of the imagery, but I mean, because when they did the director's cut, I actually thought it did really sort of water it down quite a lot, because I actually did quite a lot of sort of like newsreel footage from the time and all that sort of, so I actually think it sort of like was a very, very strange way of doing it. But this is the film you chose. Farewell, Uncle Tom, goodbye, Uncle Tom, whichever title it's under.
And it's just, whether it's good or bad, you're never going to forget it.
That's true.
That's the only thing I can say.
That's really true. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Refn.